Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker and welcome to episode 55, Self-Confidence Means. So this month, we're talking all about healthy self-confidence, as you know, a topic very near and dear to my heart, and I think really at the core of what this podcast is all about. And that's why I've touched on it in many different ways this past year, from boundaries to grief work and everything in between, because I believe that all roads lead back to self-confidence when it comes to really living authentically and in the moment. I also believe that when we work on our self-confidence, everything else in our life gets better. We make better choices, we have healthier relationships, and we are happier. We're happier because there is what's called an internal locus of control rather than an external one. So our power starts to become more and more from within. So along with that, one of the definitions of self-confidence, I think, is believing in and trusting you. Means believing and trusting your thoughts, your feelings, your needs, and your desires, and your experiences. Albert Bandura was a theorist that talked a lot about self-efficacy. And self-efficacy is what Nathaniel Branden talked about is the other half of self-esteem. He paired self-efficacy, the belief that I can do something in the future, with the other half, personal responsibility. I think personal responsibility is a bigger slice of the pie, so to speak. But either way, Bandura says self-efficacy is your beliefs about your capacity to influence the events in your own lives. And so when you look out to tomorrow and next week, the belief that you'll handle it, right? You'll tackle it, and you don't have to do it perfectly. That you'll just go do that. So there's a lot of moving parts to that. We're more likely to step out and do something, to sign up for something, to take a risk. Again, I think the other part is taking responsibility. You've heard me say many times, owning your choices, owning your behavior, owning everything about you. And it's not about anybody else anymore, even if it used to be. So if you want to take a deeper dive, go back to episode 22, but here is a broad brush view of taking responsibility here. It's a subject I don't think we can talk about enough. So what that means is you're responsible for setting your own boundaries. Boundary work, when you do it, you realize it really always boomerangs back to you. We don't set boundaries on other people. We can't expect other people to read our minds. We have to do it. We have to express what we need, what we're willing to do, what we're not willing to do. We can't put it on them, even though we'd love to. If they just would fill in the blank, right? If they would start doing this, stop doing this, change, be different, do what I ask them to do, that's control, guys. We've talked all about that. The opposite is pulling it back within and saying, what do I need to do to take care of myself? And within that, I'm also responsible for what I say and what I do all day long. Even the little things. So that means being mindful about what you're getting ready to say, right? Why are you really saying that? Like, what is your agenda? You've heard me talk about that. It's about staying in the solution. It's about assuming responsibility for how you got yourself into the situation in the first place. And it's the opposite of blame. We don't blame others for our choices. We don't blame ourselves either. We just accept responsibility. We start recognizing that other people can't make me think. Other people can't make us think, make us feel, or make us choose something, right? We're doing that, and we always have a choice. We may have very limited choices, but they're ours. And the more that we can really settle into that concept, life starts changing dramatically. Along with that, being responsible for allowing others to define my reality if I do that. Only I know what is real and true for me, just as you only know what's real and true for you. If we let other people define this, even in very insidious and subtle ways, it's going to keep us from being who we're really supposed to be, right? And this can be done in all sorts of ways, and I've talked about this before, where you let people tell you what you should think and what you should feel, what you should need or not, how you should see yourself and how you should see the world and other people. And I just really want to strongly encourage you to take a long look at that if that's been happening. Figure out what you think, what you need, what you feel, what you believe for your own why. Don't allow anyone else to try to define that for you, because if you do, you will not feel grounded or confident. Being confident means being responsible for my intentions and my motivation. Remember that agenda. Check your agenda before you open your mouth, before you walk in the door. What are you really trying to do? Does it match what you value? Does it match your integrity? What outcomes are you trying to control, perhaps? Do you want them to like you, not be mad at you? Avoid conflict, perhaps? There's a million different agendas that we can have, guys. And I think the only best way is to say, search your heart. Search your heart. Just ask yourself the question, do I have any other underlying agendas that are fear-based here? And the answer will come. Even if it doesn't come right away, trust me, it'll pop up within a few days and you'll know. The more work you do on yourself, the more aware you will become, because you're asking your subconscious to pay attention to this, right? And so it's going to point it out for you. This is not to be hard on yourself. It's just to create some really great self-awareness. And what happens if you do come up with a less than stellar motive? Look at what the fear is driving that motivation, and what is the healthy opposite behavior. For example, if the underlying agenda is to people please because you don't want people not to like you, the healthy opposite behavior is, you know what? I really need to tell her the truth, let's say, and I'd rather do that. Here comes the choice. Because I would much rather hold on to my integrity and have her pissed at me or not like me than give away a part of who I am just to keep someone in my life. Because then, pull the thought all the way through, remember, is that who I want in my life? If someone can't honor what I think is one of my values, I really have to give that some hard thinking. Do I really want that person that close to me? Maybe they can't honor that. Along with that, being responsible for placing myself in unhealthy situations, right? And removing myself if and when possible. And I say if and when possible because right now you might not be able to. You might feel kind of stuck, and that's okay. But we choose what we allow in our life, and we really need to take ownership of that. A lot of times we're so focused on how crazy they are and what they're doing and what they're not doing and how much chaos they're causing and on. We really have to take a step back and say, whoa, how did I get myself in this in the first place? Even in family relationships, we can have boundaries, we can set limits, and we can detach. So we really want to take stock of our environments, like early and often. Like, how healthy are they, and do I even know? I can tell you that if there's a lot of chaos, like du jour, it's probably not a healthy situation there. Especially if it's stuff that is within their control. I'm not talking about, unfortunately, bad things happening to good people who did not bring anything on by their choices. So pay attention to how you feel on the inside around certain people or in certain situations. You want to look at what I call the damage receipt. This is where you actually start adding up the costs to you in terms of money, in terms of time, in terms of emotional stress, in terms of impacts on others in your life, other relationships that you may have. What about other situations like your work? When you have toxic people in your life, other areas of your life will become impacted eventually. Trust me. I unfortunately work with this all the time with folks. The healthy people in your life are probably going to love you from a distance until you get it together, right? So we really want to take a hard look at that and look at our own fears around cutting ties and facing conflict and walking away, perhaps. Which means being responsible for my honesty and vulnerability with others, right? It's like I get to choose how emotionally honest and transparent I am. And we talked last month about communication and connection and quality relationships. And I just want to remind you, this means you have to take time throughout the week to center, dig down, get in your real truth, get some loving accountability around you, which means people who will not tell you what you want to hear in a loving and healthy way, not a judgy, codependent way. And then you have to come clean with others, right? Which means you don't get to compartmentalize. See, that's a common coping skill. Tell one friend one thing, but you leave out certain elements of the story because if she knew the whole skinny, what might she say to you? So you want to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, and the whole truth. Okay, really be honest. We are as healthy as we are honest with others who are healthy enough to help us. I believe that. And finally, being responsible means being honest with yourself, looking in the mirror. I firmly believe that to the extent of our honesty with ourselves is how much our life will honor what we really want or who we really are. And this is harder because, we might actually really be afraid to really own what we truly feel and what we really think about ourselves and what we know we need. Because especially this might mean abandonment by unhealthy people once we start making changes. I think deep down we know shit's going to change. And are we ready to do that? I personally think that we know if we're ready to do that, and we kind of feel when we're not. And if you're not ready. It's sometimes helpful to first focus on nurturing the one or two folks in your life who are healthier and who want good things for you and wouldn't want you to stay in a toxic relationship, because you have to have something to grab onto before you're going to let go of the other one. And you need strength around you and encouragement and support. So first things first, if you're not ready to pull the trigger, you need some healthy support systems. But I've watched over the years as people gain some healthy support people in their life, something to grab onto, kind of like on a trapeze. When they let go of the old thing, they need to have something new to hold on to. So maybe you build that first. There's a place to go. And of course, we can't talk about taking responsibility without talking about boundaries. I'm all about boundaries inside and out. External boundaries and internal boundaries, which are self-discipline. It's about not rejecting reality. It's about being a grown-up in my mind. And it's about accepting responsibility, even if we have to kick and scream to get there in private. But it's about taking the mature route. Taking responsibility means you don't punt and you don't blame everyone else for your problems, and you are out of excuses. You don't do excuses anymore. You'll start to, and then you'll say, that's an excuse, isn't it? Or there's no excuse. I just didn't do it, damn it. I didn't feel like doing it. I wasn't ready to do it, and I blew it. Okay, own it. Continue to own it. So personal responsibility, I think, is a huge part of self-confidence. Owning everything you think, feel, do, need, and choose. It can feel like a daunting task if this isn't something that you already do. Start small, keep at it, start owning little things. You will want to own more and more and more, because there's a direct correlation between owning what you think, feel, need, do, and choose and believe, and how confident you feel about yourself. Remember that internal locus of control starts happening. And even though it might be scary sometimes to take that responsibility, which is why you may not have done it in the past, but there's nothing more empowering. Nothing. And you start tasting the freedom of choosing. Self-confidence is about being intentional, which is what you're going to start to really want to do and to live on purpose. And along with that comes commitment. I think our values are strongly correlated with things that we're committed to. I think you would agree with me on that. So conversely, first, if in the past you had a hard time committing or following through on something, remember that's perfectionism and fear that you're going to fail. And it's fear that if you follow through, you're going to blow it. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to choose the wrong thing. You're going to screw it up and you're not going to be okay. The only way to feel good about yourself, I think, is to actually follow through on what you commit to. You can't feel good about yourself by not following through, by not showing up, by not making it real. It's not real until we make it happen. We can talk all we want. I'm more concerned, do you believe you more than others believing in you? I mean, that's a thing too. How can they trust you or think that you have integrity or reliability if you're not one to always follow through? They can't count on you. You can't count on yourself. So I encourage, pick one thing at a time that you would really like to start following through on. That could be something as small as showing up somewhere on time, following through on paying that bill, following through on calling that person back, on doing that workout routine tomorrow morning. Pick small things because then you're showing your subconscious, guess what? It actually feels really good to follow through and nothing blew up when it happened. And I want you to write down and think about how good it's going to feel to actually follow through on that. That's really important. Because taking a risk means you could make a mistake. But it's different today because as you really work on this, your self-worth is no longer going to be tied to the outcome, that perfect outcome that you're desiring. It's no longer going to be about anyone else. Because here's why. Something else is more important. Your why, your meaning, your purpose, maybe what you're passionate about. Let's look at those values again. So following through, the saying, say what you mean what you say, and follow through. Not only are other people going to love to be around you more and trust you more and have confidence in you, but you're going to feel more confidence within yourself. You are going to trust you more. And self-trust is the most amazing thing, and it's also the most important thing, because you can't bring yourself to the proverbial table if you don't even believe you. How in the hell is anyone else supposed to believe in you? I think other people feel our internal conflict. I think other people feel our anxiety, and it makes them anxious and uncomfortable. So self-efficacy plays a part here too. Remember the belief that you can do something because you can see yourself kind of tackling it. Maybe not perfectly, of course, but I think empowerment comes from doing, so visualize it. You've heard me talk about that before. Picture yourself doing something, doing it well, notice all the details, smiling when you do this several times a day for a couple of weeks, and I want to see what happens. I want to see how much better you feel doing that. Desensitization is a well-researched thing. When we become accustomed to something, it's not as scary anymore, right? So when you visualize yourself doing it, it's almost as if you've already done it, if you do it enough. Talk about it to other trusted people too. Get positive feedback from others who can build you up and say, of course you can do that. Why in the hell wouldn't you be able to do that? And they kind of tell you why it's possible for you to probably do that. Everything you do empowers you to do more and better. And we're going to get into this a little bit more in the next episode. And finally, I think self-confidence is about identity, right? It's about ultimately discovering and knowing who you are and perhaps what your purpose is. I think our identity comprises all of this stuff. It's, all of what we think, what we feel, what we believe, and what we do. All of our stories, right? Ones that we tell ourselves and ones that actually happened in our life. Our cultural identity, our family identity, all the messages that we have told ourselves about ourselves and what other folks have told us about ourselves. What I want you to put some thought in this week is, what is your story? What have you been thinking about? Where did you get that story? And do you want to keep it? Like, how true is it? We've talked in the past about self-concept and how, unfortunately, unhealthy family interactions can really mess up someone's self-esteem. And the wounds from that are profound, especially if a child is young, and it comes from primary caregivers or siblings, because they're really important too. People like your first grade teacher, your favorite uncle, people that you looked up to and believed because you had to. Wounds to your self-esteem, either around your efficacy, like that you can do something, because people get lots of wounds around that. Like, oh, you don't want to do that. Nah, that wouldn't be a good idea. You might mess that up kind of vibe. And the other half of it is people telling you what you should think, feel, need, do, and choose. I want you to step back and think about, what is my identity comprised of, right? Like, who am I? And where did I get that definition? Because what I want to encourage you to do is take a look at that and see if you might want to change it. Maybe you want to write a new story for yourself. This is very powerful when people do family of origin work and they work through all that grief and they start realizing where their wounds came from. And they heal those. They do the work and they heal a lot of that stuff. And then they start working on the resulting unhealthy coping skills like we've talked about, like control issues, defensiveness, anxiety, all the fear-based behaviors, hiding from the world, that have kept them from being their authentic self. What's really neat is when they start doing that and start choosing to rewrite the ending of their story, it does not have to look anything like the beginning of your story. It really doesn't. I just want to remind you that you're the only one who gets to choose that. You get to choose how you live here forward. I tell clients all the time, we talk about what was, and I'm like, okay, but here forward, guess what you can do? You can do one better. You can take more responsibility for how you talk to people today, about how you talk to yourself. You can take more responsibility for your behavior, for working on boundaries, and working on vulnerability. You get to a la carte all the aspects of you, like you're walking through the buffet line. You have maybe one or two plates in your hand, and you get to choose what you put on that plate or two and what you want to leave on the buffet. Maybe you want to leave fear on the buffet, but you love creativity and you're going to keep that on your plate. Maybe there are aspects of your cultural identity that you like and some that you don't care for anymore. They just no longer work. What about your values? Take a look at those. See what you want to keep. See what you want to let go of. And maybe you want to add some new ones. I know I've added new ones over the years. And that has been really wonderful and expansive for me. And it's funny, I look back to many years ago and think, oh my gosh, I was so limited. So I just want to encourage you to get creative and get thoughtful. You get to design you. And at the core of it, that's what confidence is. Get quiet this week. Take some moments if you can and see what comes up. See what thoughts, see what feelings come up. Journal if you can. Draw or paint or walk or whatever you want to do. Listening to yourself really, underneath all the fear really, is going to be a huge part of building confidence. Listen to your intuition. Listen to your inner voice. Take responsibility. Start chipping away at your fear of commitment. Visualize what you can do in the future. And stay with us all month as we explore this even deeper. All right. So today we talked all about what self-confidence is, from taking responsibility, becoming more authentic, trusting yourself, owning all the parts of you. And this month, I hope you take some time to focus on you and maybe some of the areas that you struggle with and you'd like to get better at it. And keep working at this. Remember, building confidence is a process. And it's sometimes a messy and scary one, and that's okay. But don't give up. Stay determined because the payoff is amazing. All right, so thank you for being with me today. I hope you stay healthy out there. Stay grounded. Hold on to yourself and hold on to hope. Keep focusing on the really great things about you and find them in other people. If you don't already receive the Tribe newsletter, be sure to check out the show notes at www.ownitpowercast.com and sign up for the newsletter that you get each Tuesday. You can click in there to look at past episodes, bonus downloads from other episodes. It's where you have access to the blog and everything else that's happening. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.